Hi everyone, it's Ileana and I have a card to share with you using the Simon Says Stamp October 2014 card kit. I will be taking the sentiment from the What's Brewing stamp set that comes in the kit and I'm just lining it up onto Misty. It's not important that you line it up, but it's just a habit. As you notice, I am using the sample the manufacturer has sent me. It looks exactly the same except that the grid lines are screen printed onto the lid. I've stamped the sentiment onto the grid paper on the base of the unit, and now I'm stamping it onto the clear plastic that comes with the Stamp-A-Majig. You can use vellum or any kind of acetate, something that you would be able to see through. I am wiping off my stamp and I'm using the Close to My Heart stamp scrubber to remove any lint that might be left over from the baby wipe. I am taking the negative part of the Sketchy Banners die, well, the die cut that you get when you cut out the banner. I'm using that to line up my stamp. The stamp is a little too long, and so I am adjusting the sentiment so that I can fit it in there. And I don't really like cutting up my stamps, and so this is a good fix for that. The stamps don't scream, but I kind of do when I cut them, and I just don't like cutting them. So what I did was that I prepped my area with my embossing buddy. I have covered up the part of the stamp that I do not want inked with a Post-it tape. I've inked it up with my Versamark, and then I have removed the Post-it and then stamped my image. And because it's Versamark, it's a little bit difficult to see. I went ahead and embossed it with white embossing powder, and I like to use my X-Acto knife to remove any excess powder that might be in places I don't want. And I just usually, scrape it off, and then I just blow on it just a little bit. And I am heating up my heat tool, and then I will be embossing it and just melting the powder. I just noticed that there's just a little bit more powder, and I'm very particular. And my tweezers were really close to the magnet, and so the magnet pulled my hand down. So you got to be careful with the magnets. It is very, very strong. So once my banner has the partial sentiment on it, I'm just going to go back and scrape off some of that powder that, is still in places where I don't like. And it's pretty easy just to flick it off with the X-Acto knife. So I'm popping my sentiment back into the negative die cut, and I'm taking the Stamp-A-Majig and I've wedged it into the corner for lining it up, and now I'm moving my paper underneath it to line up the word sending with the A on the rest of the stamped image. And I'm just taking that Post-it tape that I had earlier, and I'm just covering up the stamped image that I had previously. And now I'm stamping the final part of my sentiment. So now it says, sending a lot of things. And stamping sentiments on banners, it's pretty easy with Misty, just simply by lining it up and dropping your die cut right into the negative space. So it makes it pretty precise. And so there you go. It's lined up perfect. So that's all the stamping I'm going to be doing with Misty. And now I'm going to put the rest of my card together. And I've pre-cut everything. That probably took the longest. I used my new large rectangle dies from Lawn Fawn, and it puts that pretty little stitched border around the edge. And I want to adhere the ring frame die that I cut using from the Simon Says Stamp die. And I am just using a spray adhesive instead of trying to get my liquid adhesive all the way around, by the time I get all the way around, part of it is dry, so this is just a little bit of a faster way to do it. And I'm basically just trying to center that die right in the middle. And I'm going to be using the coffee cup that came in the kit, and I've cut out 3 pieces with the die out of the orange cardstock that is in the kit, and I'm just layering up the 3 pieces. And I would recommend putting adhesive on the very top of the die, because I did run into a little bit of trouble with them just trying to separate up at the top when I tried to put the stamped image you'll see later. And so now I'm just going to take the pieces that I had die cut, and what I did is I took the pattern paper that came in the kit and I just selectively picked parts of the pattern that would show through, and I kind of centered the pattern through the little die, so that way I got the complete flower on this circle here. And I go back and I actually put 2 layers of foam adhesive underneath that. And I'm trying to figure out which circles to put foam under, and so I just decide that I'm going to go ahead and put foam underneath my banner. That way I have a better idea of which pieces need to be flat and which pieces need to be mounted on foam. I decide to go ahead and place all of my circles in their appropriate spots. That way I could visualize things a little bit better. And the kit came with these beautiful papers, and they're all matched for you, and so it was pretty easy just to choose which pattern goes in which size circle. Once I have them in place, it's easier for me to decide which ones get mounted and which ones get adhered flat. I just decide to do the little tiny ones completely flat. It was just going to be easier in the long run, rather than trying to cut down my foam adhesive to fit behind those little tiny circles. I decide that I want to go ahead and stamp out the steam that will come out of the cup, and I just mounted the stamp onto an acrylic block. Since it's such a small image, I went ahead and just pulled out an acrylic block, and I'm using craft ink from Paper Tray ink, and I'm going to fussy cut around the image. Once the image is cut out, I just set it aside and start to adhere the rest of my circles to place them onto the die cut. And I'm just using my quick stick to pick up the pieces, and some of the circles will be flat and some of them will be adhered with some foam behind them. And I put a little bit of foam behind the coffee cup. My thought was to just drop in the heart, and then I would add adhesive to the top, and then I would drop in the remainder of the little hearts, but that didn't work out, and so I pulled it out, and then I'm going to go ahead and assemble the 3 layers, and then I'll drop it into the negative space of the coffee cup. Once that's in place, I decide that I want to add foam adhesive to the pink circle underneath the sentiment, and because I added dimension to that circle, I would need to remove the adhesive on the back of the banner to accommodate for the different heights of the circles underneath. And I also stamped the word thanks, the lot of thanks part of the stamp, a little bit lower. That way I could have the coffee cup sit just above that, and so it's grounded. I didn't want the coffee cup to cover up the word thanks, and so it is stamped a little bit lower. And once I figure out where I need to add foam adhesive to my banner, I go ahead and cut out some new foam and place it underneath, and then I take my ATG gun and add a little bit of adhesive to the remainder of the banner. I don't like to use liquid adhesive there because if I rip it up or want to change placement, it will rip the paper underneath, and so that's why I wanted to use ATG. And now I am adhering the remainder of the elements to the front of my card. I'm using a little bit of foam adhesive on the thickest part of the steam, and I'm adding a little bit of the matte medium underneath the coffee cup, and then I figure out I need to pull this off to get it to go underneath. And so I fiddle with it for a little bit and finally get it how I want it. And I use the multimedia adhesive because the other Scotch adhesive that I have, that dries shiny, and so I wanted the matte in case that I got adhesive where I didn't want it. And so now I'm going to adhere the coffee cup back on, and then I will remove the backing off the steam, and then I will add a little bit more of the multimedia, the adhesive, back onto the small steam swirl. I'm just using a little bit of a baby wipe to clean up some of that adhesive. And I take my card base and I add adhesive to the card base. Since it's going to cover up the whole card front, I just add the adhesive to the very edge of the card, just all the way around, and then I'm just using the top of the card to line everything up. So once everything is adhered down, I take the sequins that came in the kit and I'm just dropping them, and the sequins that come in the baggies, they're pretty staticky, and so I just took a small piece of a dryer sheet and I cut it and I put it in my little sequence box, and then I shake it up and it kind of takes away all of the static from the sequins. So I'm placing one sequence inside the circle where the flower is, and then I'm just placing a few more sequins around the sentiment. And I always struggle with sequence placement, and so this is where I ended up deciding to put my sequence. And I'm just using my quick stick and the pointy end to adhere them down. So thanks for watching. Be sure you give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment, and be sure to subscribe. Have a great day.